Hello guys, and welcome back to yet another video. In this video, we are going to look at MRI projectile hazards and the risks associated with them. The following subtopics will be covered in this video. 1. The 5 goes line. 2. Projectiles. 3. Magnet quenching. And finally, safety measures taken following a quench. Let's begin by defining a 5 goes line. A 5 goes line refers to a specific distance from the MRI magnet where the static magnetic field strength drops to 5 gauss. Gauss, on the other hand, is a unit of magnetic field strength commonly used in the field of magnetism. In MRI, the gauss is often used when referring to the small changes in magnetic field imposed by a gradient. Please note, the distance of the 5 gauss line is not fixed. It depends on the strength of the MRI system. Let's have a deeper look and dive into a little bit more physics. First, the static magnetic field. Static magnetic fields are magnetic fields that do not vary with time. The static magnetic field is the main magnetic field created by the superconducting coils and is measured in Tesla. 10,000 gauss equals 1 Tesla. The Earth's magnetic field is roughly 0.5 gauss. Therefore, a 1 Tesla magnet is about 20,000 times stronger than the Earth's magnetic field, which makes our 3 Tesla scanner about 60,000 times stronger. The stray magnetic field, which is outside the magnet bore, is known as the fringe field. Superconducting magnets use active shielding, which confines the fringe field to the scan room. The perimeter around an MRI scanner within which the static magnetic fields are higher than 5 gauss is called the 5 gauss line. This is about 10 times higher than the average Earth magnetic field. A few changes are expected upon crossing the 5 gauss line. At 5 gauss line and above, cardiac pacemakers and implanted electronic devices are at a risk of being interfered with by the static magnetic field. Second, ferromagnetic materials may become projectiles. Note that the distance at which a 5 gauss line is drawn around a particular MRI scanner will depend on 2 factors. First, the magnetic field strength, and 2, the level of magnetic shielding used. For our purposes, we consider the threshold of the magnet room door as the 5 gauss line. Electronic devices and ferromagnetic objects inside the 5 gauss line are strictly prohibited. Let's have a look at projectile hazards. The magnetic field of an MRI system has the capability to attract metallic, that is ferromagnetic objects, towards it with a high velocity and force. The larger the object, the greater the velocity and force. Due to the strong magnetic field generated by the magnet, the object gets pulled towards the MRI machine at an enormous speed, turning into a deadly projectile. Anything lying between the path of the projectile and the MRI can become a casualty. When this happens, the MRI scanner gets damaged, which can be repaired only at a great cost. Please note, objects that do not appear to contain any metal may have ferromagnetic metal inside, so always take extra precaution. Here are a few examples of some catastrophic accidents. An unfortunate case occurred in New York in 2001 when the head of a 6-year-old boy was crushed by an oxygen tank that flew into the scanner while he was being scanned. A more recent case in early 2023, where a projectile fatality occurred in Sao Paulo, Brazil. A 40-year-old lawyer died after being shot by his own gun while accompanying his mother for an MRI. The man, who is a well-known gun rights advocate, brought the hidden weapon into the MRI room even after having been instructed in MRI safety procedures, which include removal of all metal objects. As he neared the scanner, the weapon was pulled from his waistband, it struck the machine, and fired a bullet into his stomach. After a week's hospital stay, he succumbed to his injuries. Next up, we are going to look at what happens following an MRI accident, which in most cases is a quench. So let's define a quench. A quench is when helium is quickly released from the MRI machine. This causes the machine to be non-superconductive and eliminating the magnetic field. Simply put, the machine is not a running magnet anymore. In the next few slides, we are going to look at the events preceding a magnet quench. As we all know, the material that makes these magnets so powerful is liquid helium, which takes the resistance in the coil windings around the magnet down to zero. This allows the electrical current to flow continuously as long as, and this is key, the liquid helium is maintained at a steady negative 452.2 degrees Fahrenheit. A quench occurs when there is a rise in the magnet's temperature, resulting in a loss of superconductivity. This means that the resistance in the electrical current, as previously described, is no longer at zero, which results in a chain reaction. First comes the ever-increasing resistance, which causes more and more heat. The heat causes the liquid helium to boil into gas, and this causes the pressure to build up until there is a sudden, dramatic, and expensive release of the helium gas. Fortunately, all MRIs are equipped with a helium quench pipe, which vents it out of the building safely into the air. Next, let's look at the types of quenching. And the first one is a safety or an emergency quench. In some rare cases, clear signage is ignored and metal objects like mop buckets or oxygen tanks, etc., get sucked into the bore of the scanner. These are very difficult to remove while the magnet is at field. And if a patient is somehow pinned inside, an emergency push button, also called the quench button, can be a lifesaver. Therefore, this type of a quench is called a safety or an emergency quench. The other type of quenching is a procedure called a planned quench. This is sometimes used by an engineer when an older and no longer usable magnet is being decommissioned. It saves the time and expense of a formal ramp down. There are certain risks that are associated with a quench, and the consequences can be extremely dangerous. First, freezing temperatures associated with liquid helium could cause frostbites, which can even cause death. And second, oxygen displacement with helium gas could potentially cause asphyxiation to any persons in the imaging room. Secondary to the risk of human injury is the innate risks to the MRI hardware itself. Once a quench begins, damage to the internal components and coils can damage the electromagnet permanently, and these can be very costly. And in this last segment, let's explore some of the measures that we can take during a quench, either safety or planned, to ensure no injuries to staff or the general public. The first measure is to alert. When a quench is detected or anticipated, it is crucial to alert all personnel in the vicinity and inform them about the situation. This can be done through audible alarms, visual signals, or intercom systems. The second measure is to evacuate. Departments should establish an evacuation plan in advance and ensure that all personnel are familiar with the escape routes and assembly points. Evacuate the area immediately, following the predetermined evacuation plan to a safe location outside the affected zone. Third is ventilation and gas purge. In some cases, superconducting systems may require gas purging or ventilation during normal operation. During a quench, ensure that adequate ventilation systems are activated to remove any hazardous gases, such as cryogens or coolant vapors, from the area. Fourth is the provision and use of personal protective equipment. Depending on the nature of the superconducting systems and associated hazards, personnel should wear appropriate PPE, such as safety goggles, gloves, insulated clothing, and non-sparking footwear, to protect against potential risks during a quench. Next, ensure the availability of an emergency response team. Designate a team of trained personnel responsible for managing emergency situations like quenches. This team should be well versed in the facility's safety procedures and have access to emergency equipment such as fire extinguishers, first aid kits, and communication devices. Finally, conduct a post-quench inspection and analysis. After the quench event, conduct a thorough inspection of the affected system to identify any potential damage or malfunction. Analyze the cause of the quench, document the event, and report it to the appropriate authorities for further investigation or maintenance. And that, ladies and gents, marks the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot. Remember, you got this. Keep going and see you in the next one.